Sydzillans! Welcome back to another video. For this one, I finally have another episode of This and That in Stars. Number 51 is going to be a combined book and movie review for All the Bright Places. I don't know how much I actually have to say, but I am going to include spoilers, so as you can tell from the title, you've been warned. So, there are a few minor discrepancies whether you're reading the book or watching the movie, but a general plot synopsis is Violet Markey is recovering from the traumatic death of her older sister, Violet Markey, 9 months or so previous in a car crash. Violet survived, the sister did not. And we also have this main character, Theodore Finch, and he struggles with this thing called the asleep, where he just blacks out for days on end. I guess like mini comas, for lack of a better comparison, and he can skip multiple weeks of school at a time. And all of his friends, he only has the two, Charlie and Brenda, are like, oh yeah, that's a classic Finch, and don't even really question it. He comes, he goes, and that's his life. Anyway, Violet is standing up on this ledge. In the book they use the bell tower, in the movie it was a bridge, but she's practically able to kill herself if it weren't for Finch being there. However, the story at school goes that Violet saved him, because she's the more popular one and he's known as the Freak. Also, Violet has been using this expression called extenuating circumstances to try and get out of assignments, either entirely or modified, for the last 9 months since the car crash. But this one teacher, Mr. Black, in geography, will not let her get out of this particular assignment. What this assignment is that the students have to wander Indiana and pick 2 or more interesting, cool sites and make a report, both an essay and a visual oral presentation. They're seniors, and some of them will be leaving the state for college. No one will ever move back, so he wants to make sure that they've explored the great area in which they live. So Finch dibs doing the project with Violet, and the whole book / movie is about them becoming friends, then becoming boyfriend-girlfriend, and whatnot as they do this project. Now, in the very beginning of the book / movie, Violet is very reluctant to want to do the project with Finch, only because she can't get out of it does she agree to. But she only agrees to look at 2 wanderings, no more. I'm doing the bare minimum on this project, and also they have to be within a biking distance. I have not ridden or driven a car since the crash. I just ignore it entirely. I'm just too scared. So at first Finch is like, yeah, okay, and they bike to the tallest point of Indiana. This is not that tall, but whatever. It's still pretty cool looking. But as time goes on, he doesn't agree to that plan anymore, and he convinces her to get into the car, driving very cautiously and carefully to a wandering that is 160 miles from their houses. This particular site is this older man who's built a 1-seater custom roller coaster in his backyard. Now, after that first initial time driving to and from the roller coaster, Violet is now comfortable to drive in the car and see multiple different wanderings with Finch. Even later in the book, she's actually driving herself. So it's a big step and a big character development from the scared shy girl at the beginning of the book. Now, based on the way I've described this story so far, it might seem like a happy book. Girl meets boy, they do a school project, they fall in love, blah blah blah. But if you read the back cover, at least of the copy that I had, it was being compared to The Fault in Our Stars, and it was also being compared to Eleanor and Park. Now, I can't speak for Eleanor and Park, I haven't read it, but I have read The Fault in Our Stars, and I would have to say that comparison is extremely accurate. And the main reason that I agree with their comparison is because, and again, spoiler alerts, if you've read The Fault in Our Stars, you'll know that the main character is a girl, she meets a boy, they fall in love, and the boy dies. What's his name? I'm blanking right now. His cancer comes back, and that's the end of that. Augustus. That's the name. Augustus Waters. Anyway, you'll know that in Fault in Our Stars, Augustus dies. In All the Bright Places, girl and boy meet, they fall in love, and boy dies. Violet's world, to use backjacket quotes, is expanding. Her world grows bigger throughout the course of the novel. But Finch's world, even though he's friends with Violet and he loves Violet and whatever, his world shrinks, and by the end of the book, he's committed suicide by drowning himself in this bottomless blue hole, as it's called. There's this pond that is bottomless. You can't find the bottom because it just doesn't exist, and he's really good at holding his breath. So one time when him and Violet are there together, he swims down for so long that he scares her and she's terrified and she's concerned, blah blah blah. But one time when he goes there without her, he goes so far down and stays down, and well, that's it. That's the end. There is no more Finch. Just quickly, some other wanderings that Violet and Finch go to is they go to a wall that says, "Before I die, ... and you're supposed to write in what you wanted to have accomplished. They go to this tree filled with thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes and throw out some pairs of their own. They went to an abandoned drive-in. In the book, they went to, I think it's called the Purina Tower. I'm blanking the exact name, but they went up there and hung out a couple of times. And also, there is this church for weary travelers to take a rest on their journeys. It's also a memoriam for those who died in auto accidents. Violet only goes there by herself at the end after having lost Finch. It's the place on their map that was in red marker and was all marked as special, but they hadn't managed to yet go there together. And the whole entire movie is extremely sad. Like when I was reading the book, I loved the whole entire book, and I only really cried near the end when Finch was dying and Violet was reading his letter at the church. But I was losing it for the entire movie. Nearing to the end, when Finch was missing and Finch was dying and Violet was like without him, was even worse. But I was losing it for the entire movie. Like normally when I'm watching sad movies or sad TV shows, say for example The 100 and so many character deaths, I was crying 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, if not more, than the amount that I'd cry for other shows and movies. To give you an example, I don't usually blow my nose when I'm crying, but this movie I had to do it twice. And maybe that's TMI, but I'm trying to get a point across that if you want or need just a very good cry, watch this movie. Like don't think, oh, it's a cute romantic comedy. Sure, there might be some comedic bits, but it is depressing in a good way. But it is heartbreaking, it is tear-jerking, like it is a gut-wrenching, incredible story. Moving on to some lighter topics, I really loved how the movie was shot. Their camera angles, their choices of music, their wordless montages. They had lots of cinematography that was extremely beautiful, and also their landscapes showing all of the wanderings within Indiana. I'm sure they actually shot on location instead of trying to recreate those, but I just liked how those wanderings were portrayed in the movie. It was all very beautiful and you wanted to be there as well because it was just so wonderfully shot. And also it helped trigger the emotion, whether that's good or bad. Whether that's good or for bad, why did I repeat myself? Anyway, another thing that I wanted to talk about is there are a few differences between the book and the movie, which is to be expected, but I just thought I'd point them out. I already mentioned the bridge versus the bell tower where Finch and Violet first meet at the very beginning. And also in the book, Finch has 2 sisters. One's an older one named Kate, who's quote-unquote the mom of the family because the mom doesn't really do that much. Kate makes all the dinners. Kate answers the phone. Kate knows everything about everything. And he also has a younger sister named Decca. But in the movie version, there is no Decca. We never see or hear about a younger sister at all. In the book, Finch's parents are divorced, with his dad having married a new woman and living with her and her son from a previous relationship. And they go occasionally to have dinner with the dad, Kate, Decca, and Finch. But in the movie, the only references of the dad are about him being out of the picture and similar vibes. they never once go to his house. He was up and gone, never to be discussed, never to be hung out with. Because the one time Finch tried to talk to Kate about the dad. His moods are like this when he's laughing and stuff. My moods maybe that explains why I'm acting like this in this case. She just didn't want to talk about it. She's like so over him because he's an awful abusive person. Another difference between the book and the movie was in the book, Finch made a Facebook account solely for the sake of talking to Violet, who he calls also Violet a monkey. Why haven't I brought that up yet? Also Violet a monkey. But in the movie, he tags her in an Instagram post, then they talk on the phone, because they do phone calls in the book as well. I'm not going to harp too much on that one. And they DM by using text, that's computer text. Like imagine your iPhone text, but it's on your computer. Like they have Apple laptops. So those are probably the biggest differences that I've seen. But overall, it's very spot on to the book because Jennifer Niven, that's the name of the author, she was a screenwriter, producer. I don't remember the exact credit description, but she was heavily involved in the making of this movie to make sure that it was accurate. Now, if I was going to pick out a favorite character from the movie, I don't really have one. I would probably just be basic and say my favorites are Theodore and Violet. I'm going to stand for the main two characters. And if I was trying to pick out a favorite scene, I again don't know if I could. The whole thing is just way too amazing, way too good, way too beautiful, way too sad. Like the way that I was crying the whole movie. I especially was having read the book, making comments about things. Like Violet says that was just friends. I'm like, yeah, just friends. Or I'm never gonna get in a car. And I'm like, yeah, you totally will. Like I knew things that were gonna happen, so certain comments that would be made, I would be able to have an emotion that if you were just watching a movie in context, you probably wouldn't have that emotion. The last one that I can't think of much else to say regarding the movie or the book, just that I highly, highly recommend that you read it, and I highly, highly recommend that you watch it. So I'm going to wrap this up here after I give my rating. Hopefully all of these ramblings made some sense to you. My official rating for all the bright places combined for the movie and the book, I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10. As much as I like the sadness, I am giving that as the reason why I dropped the point. And I'll give it a full 10. As I mentioned previous in the video, the way that I was a wreck watching the movie, I never cried that hard. I don't think in ever. I don't know if I can justifiably give it a 10 out of 10 because it was just way too sad. Like I knew what was going to happen in the movie. I had read the book, but the emotions hit me way different when watching the movie compared to when reading the words on the page. I think something about seeing it happen, seeing the actors play it out and their emotions on screen is just more triggering than anything you can imagine in your head. Speaking of imagining it in your head, the biggest example of that would have to be the highest point of Indiana. If you jump back to when I visited that wandering, as cool as it was in the movie, I think that I built up to be a little higher in my head. Like, sure, it wasn't that high of a point. Granted, it is the highest point, but you know what I mean? Since they could jump off of the highest point to the bottom and be completely fine, whereas the bridge, going back to that, would have killed them both. But I just pictured it bigger in my head than the movie had it. So maybe that played a factor as well. Alright, so that's going to conclude this 51st episode of This and That in Stars. Like I mentioned, hopefully my ramblings actually made sense to you, and they were descriptive enough to make you want to watch the movie and read the book like I suggested. Anyway, if you liked it, please drop one down below. Subscribe if you're new, so don't miss any of my future content. Check out my social media accounts, links in the description. And aloha till next time.